Hey miners, what's going on? Today we're going to be talking about the network that's going to be powering Terra hosting. So let's get right into it. We're going to be going over some of the stuff that we're going to be using at Terra hosting. I'm not going to go over network topologies or anything like that. I know some of you guys are interested in kind of learning about networking. This is just going to be some of the equipment we're going to use and some of the features that come with using this particular type of networking gear. So let's head over to the PC and let's go check out exactly what we're going to be using today. We're over here at MikroTik. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this company or not. They are a networking company. They do enterprise level networking as well as at home networking as well. So the particular one that we're going to start with first is going to be this big boy right here, which is the CCR 2216-1G-12XS-2XQ. Yeah, that's a lot of words, a lot of letters. All right. So essentially, man, this is our router, right, that we're using for Terra hosting. We went with this because, well, when you get into the 100 gig world of networking, the choices for routers and connectivity and stuff like that, the options you have get less and less, right? You're not going to find an Asus, you're not going to find a TP-Link. All those consumer brands, they all just go out the window. They don't support connections of this magnitude, right? Usually when you talk 100 gigabit, you're talking about Juniper, you're talking Cisco, right? You're getting to those big names that usually deal with like data center level of networking. And the reason for that is when you're moving that much data across your network, typically you will have it'll have a little small router like this, and then right below it will be like a 4U ASIC essentially that's sitting there just crunching the data. Now that being said though, this little machine it actually really kicks ass. All right, so there is an ASIC chip on the 100 gig side as well, and there is also a 16 core CPU in the machine for computing and stuff like that. Let's get into what type of connectivity that we have on this particular machine. So we have two QSFP 28s, which those two are the ones here on the left, and those ones will be the 100 gigabit ports on this. And then you have 25 SFP 28 cages, which are these cages over here, and those ones can do up to 25 gigabits per cage on this side as well. As far as finding the GBICs that go inside of here for the 100 gigabit, they are quite expensive. You're looking at about $300 to $400 a pop, so it's not cheap. It's very expensive. This does have a switch chip on here. So what it does is one of the features of this with the switch chip is able to do layer 3 hardware offloading, which essentially that this switch chip is another ASIC chip. And what it does is it takes the load. So this way, not all of your VLANs and route policies and all of these other little things inside the router, it doesn't need to use the CPU. What it does is the switch chip does all the heavy loading, heavy lifting for the CPU. So this way, our CPU doesn't get bottlenecked by all these tasks that are going on. So this is just really cool stuff, man. This thing is an absolute beast. So with configuring MikroTik is it is very complex, right? There's been a few people in the community who I've worked with who have seen the back end of the MikroTik, right? And how it's configured and stuff like that. These guys obviously have NDAs with Terra and stuff like that. But they were even surprised at how complex the MikroTik really is. So one of the things with MikroTik is it's not trying to directly compete with Juniper or Cisco. What they're trying to do is they give you the most compute power for the cheapest price, right? Which also means that some of these amenities of being kind of seamless and being user friendly go right out the window. This thing has to be fully configured from step A to Z. There is no any kind of auto configuration going on remotely inside of this router. You must tell it to do every single little thing. Even when it comes to VLANs, the VLANs will naturally talk to each other unless you put a firewall policy inside of the router to tell the router for 17.10.10.1 to not talk to 172.20.20.1 to not talk to each other across the network, right? Because if you don't do that, the VLANs will natively want to talk to each other. So everything is completely configurable inside of the MikroTik. Some of you may be asking, well, is MikroTik secure? Like, is this gonna work for Terra, right? And just like some other people in here, I had my doubts, right? The reason we went with this is obviously because of the price point. When you start getting into Cisco and Juniper, these routers even used like that are 10 years old can be $20,000-$30,000, right? Brand new routers and stuff like that could be upwards all the way up to like $250,000. So we don't have those kinds of funds for a company right now. So we went with MikroTik, right? This is something that we could afford, and we thought that would work. And so the gentleman who is configuring our router and switches for us, because I did have somewhat of a hard time because I would go like 4 steps forward and then I would have to go like 3 steps back because something else wouldn't work, right? He is a MikroTik consultant. He's also a certified trainer, and he does set up like small ISPs out in California and Arizona. And he actually has companies that use nothing but MikroTik that have anywhere from 5,000 to 6,000 customers on their network that are solely using MikroTik. So just think about that: 5,000 to 6,000 customers, an ISP that they're providing bandwidth to other people, and they're able to use this stuff. As well as he does in the Arizona area, he does like wireless access points in these metal boxes out in the desert. And so MikroTiks will sit inside of these metal boxes, and just think of that. It's in Arizona in the desert. It's going to be like 140 degrees or 150 inside that metal box, and he's never had a MikroTik fail. So that's just some of the background and some of the other things with MikroTik. This is our router that we're going with. Now we will be going with. Let's go over to our switches. Okay, so up next is going to be the main switches for the core network. These are layer 3 switches. We have 4 of these, and they do approximately 640 gigabits per second. There is 2 QF, if I could say it right, QSFP plus ports that are 40 gigabits each, and then there is 24 10 gigabit SFP plus ports, which are 10 gigabits. So there'll be 10 gig fiber connections going from these particular switches out to the switches that will be on our floor. So these also use Router OS, which is going to be the full featured OS system that we're using. So this way it's going to seamlessly integrate with our router, which is the CCR 2216. Yeah, other than that, these are going to be our core switches. These are pretty big, heavy lifting switches here. I mean, if you're thinking about it, 640 gigabits per second. That's a lot. That's a lot of switching capacity. So these are definitely big boy switches. These are our core switches for our network. And then let's go ahead and let's go over to the switches that we'll be using on the floor itself. These are the switches that will be on the present floor right now. That'll be, right next to where our servers and, tight nodes and other things will be. These are a step down from what the other ones are. These are still CRS, which is their cloud router switches, and it's able to use either Router OS or Switch OS, which is what we want. We want the Router OS. That way we get full customizability of our network. So these are still layer 3 switches that we're able to use. So now this has 2 SFP plus 10 ports, and then it has 24 1 gigabit RJ45s on our floor, obviously, because we're leaving the fiber connections and we're going down to Ethernet, right? Now, that's not to say that we aren't going to have a couple of those other switches that are just strictly for fiber, to maybe go with our proof of useful work, right? Because we don't know how things are going to work out later down the road, right? With like the pooling and clustering of resources for the AI, they may need an interconnect of fiber. So a 1 gigabit RJ45 connection is definitely not going to be fast enough, right? So we may have to deploy more of our core switches that we are using. That way we can get the 10 gigabit fiber connectivity between all of the pooled or clustered resources. Until testing and all that other stuff comes out, we have nothing officially announced yet about any of that stuff. I'm just trying to think ahead of the future, right? But this is the switches that we're going to be using on the floor. That'll be going to like our dedicated servers that will be powering our VMs and stuff like that for Cumulus nodes. So let's talk about some of the pros, right, to MikroTik. Well, one, it's obviously pretty affordable compared to other enterprise solutions, as well as far as licensing goes, you can build your own, router boxes and switches and stuff like that and build them yourself. And then you could use their software if you want to, but then you're going to be paying a license fee. I believe if you want the 100 gigabit and all the licensing, it's about $500. But all of the licensing is included when you make a purchase through MikroTik. So we don't have to buy any annual licenses or anything like that, along with our MikroTiks that we already purchased, right? So the licenses and all that stuff are already included, which that's another cost when you go the Juniper and Cisco route, right? You're going to have all kinds of licenses depending upon what kind of features and what things you're going to use on the router and switches and stuff like that to have full, accessibility. It's going to cost you several $1,000s. It is not cheap. So this to me was a good solution for us. Now, what's a con or a drawback of MikroTik? It's very advanced, right? Very hard to learn. I would say its drawback is that it's not user friendly, right? But then again, most enterprise stuff isn't, right? Which is why people go out and get Cisco certified and stuff like that to get the Juniper certifications, and all of those things, right? Because let's just face it, networking is pretty advanced. Now let's talk about some of these other features that I was kind of mentioning before with MikroTik, that they're to me, they're like innovative. They're like they've come out with these nice little features that I do like, which is one is the IP knock. So IP knock is essentially you have to ping these ports in a particular order, and then before you could SSH or do anything like that to get access to the router or anything. So if you ping the wrong ports in a wrong order, or the ports are wrong in general, no matter which way it is, it's going to time you out the first time. It's going to time you out even longer the second time. And then on the third one, you're going to get blacklisted, which means that you're going to be banned. And that just doesn't mean your computer. That means the IP address that you're trying to log in from. It will ban the IP address. So I think that's a pretty cool feature. Instead of, because most people, they'll use a 25 character strong password, right, when they're setting up their VPN access and things like that. But this is just like another security measure that you have to knock on these ports to even be able to see the SSH. You won't even get access to it without doing the knock. So I thought that was really cool. They have a video about it. This is MikroTik, and this is the company that we decided to go with for our networking solution. I kind of feel like, you have the Cisco and Juniper guys up here, and they're, like MikroTik is kind of the underdog a little bit, right? And that's kind of how Terra is at first, right? We're saying grow with Terra. Well, that's kind of like what I feel like with MikroTik, right? That they're a small company, but they're doing leaps and bounds with some of their features that they're putting on their networking gear, right? So if you guys have any questions, please leave them down below. And I think that's going to conclude today's video. I was just kind of giving a brief overview of the networking company that we decided to go with for our network. So anyways, guys, this is the Money King giving you the most hashes, and I'll see you next time.